Hello friends, it's Katie back with another episode of my vlog, and I thought today I would take the opportunity to answer another viewer question. I have a lot of viewers who ask me what kinds of tools do I use in my studio. So I thought today would be a great day to do a little mini studio tour and show you guys my sewing machines and the type of cutting tools I use and the stuff that I've figured out that works for me, because of course I'm always happy to share what it is that I'm doing behind the scenes to achieve the results that I'm getting. But that said, it's not the tools that are making the artwork. It's me, of course. I have a friend who's a professional photographer, and she got really tired of people constantly looking at her photos, being amazed by her photos, and then immediately asking her, well, what type of camera did you use to take that picture? And she started doing this project where she started actually using the crappiest cameras she could find to make interesting pictures that people really liked, to kind of prove the point that it's not the camera that's taking the picture. It's not the pan or the knife that's making the amazing meal. It's not the sewing machine that's making the quilt, right? It's the artist or chef or musician, if you want to pick a music instrument as your example, who knows how to use their tools, that's actually doing the thing that is impressing you or maybe inspiring you to try doing the same thing. So all that is to say, on any creative pursuit, I feel like a good result is kind of, it's like there's like this much of the bar graph is talent, and then there's like this much is training, and then there's like this much is tools, and then the whole top part of it going up into like my ceiling where I can't even reach my hand off camera is practice. And the more you practice at a given technique, the more you practice using a given tool, the better you're going to be with it, and the cooler stuff you're going to be able to make with it, and the more satisfied you're going to feel with your output. Again, apply this in whatever dimension you want, whether it's cooking or music or, even non-creative things like sports, right? I mean, like, you just have to practice a ton. That's, what is it? Success is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. So that said, I feel like sometimes people get really hung up on, if only I had the right piece of gear, then I could do XYZ task. And usually you actually don't need whatever the really specific specialized piece of gear is, or like the really best one or whatever. And really it's you diving in and deciding to learn something and deciding to do something and working on it a lot, that's going to get you the results that you want. Now, that said, do better tools make a difference? Absolutely. If you are a really good cook and you can make an amazing meal out of kind of ingredients and cookware and a kind of mediocre stove, if I give you top-notch ingredients and a really quality knife and a really quality pan and a really great professional range to cook on, you're probably going to be able to make something better. Or maybe if you can't make something better with that, you at least might be able to make something faster or with less frustration for yourself. So I'm kind of two minds about the tools thing. There's a whole range of prices and, features levels, if you want, in any tool, whether you're talking about buying a knife or a sewing machine or a car. Obviously you can go real low end or you can go real high end. And what I've kind of settled on in my practice is I buy myself the most expensive tools that I can afford. Now, that's a big caveat, right? I'm not going to go into debt over it. I'm not going to not be able to pay my bills or anything like that over buying a more expensive tool. I also usually limit myself with tool upgrades to things that I know I'm going to use. Like, I use my camera a lot. This is kind of a funny one because the camera I use more than any other is the one I'm talking to right now. Of course, the camera in my phone. I have a whole shelf of cameras I'll show you in a second when we move to the studio tour part of this, that I don't really use that often because This one is really, really good, and it's with me all the time. So that makes it pretty much the best camera that I have. Uh-oh, I kind of lost the thread of what I was saying. Anyhow, what I'm trying to get at is you don't want to buy yourself the crappiest, totally cheapest, worst quality tool ever. That's just going to be frustrating. You also don't want to buy yourself just the top of the line, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing, unless you've worked your way up to that. Again, if you've been working in your field for years, decades, you've gotten really, really good, you've gotten to the point where you have it just dialed in, yeah, go out and buy yourself that way nicer piece of equipment that's going to make your life flow that much smoother. But you don't need that piece of equipment to achieve great results, right? I'm kind of contradicting myself, but I hope that you guys understand what I'm saying here. I just as a little aside, I took a drawing 101 class, a million years ago when I was first in college, and my instructor in the class said, I know you're all students and you're gonna want to go out there and buy the cheapest possible paper, but I want you to spend a little bit more money than that. And the reason why is if you come into my class with a newsprint pad, one day you're going to do an amazing drawing on a piece of newsprint, and you're going to be kicking yourself forever that you didn't do it on like a little bit better piece of paper. And I didn't listen. And I came in with the newsprint pad, and I have an absolutely amazing graphite still life that I did on newsprint that I've been kicking myself about. Every time I see it in my old pile of art, I go, oh man, I should have listened to that instructor and bought the better paper. So there's a low end that you kind of don't want to go under for some of these projects. A lot of people ask me about buying sewing machines, and my rule of thumb for sewing machines is you really don't want to spend less than about $300 on a sewing machine. It's going to be a joke of a machine, and it's not going to last you very well. And I don't give sewing machine buying advice ever. I never recommend specific models to people. But what I do say, if you're interested in buying a sewing machine, is you need to go to your local sewing machine dealer and talk to them and tell them what types of projects you want to work on in your sewing. And they're going to point you to the right machine. And then they're going to want you to test drive the machine and have them show you how to use the machine in the store before you even buy it, so that you can really be sure that it's the right machine for you. And that's absolutely the best way to buy a sewing machine. Don't just order one off the internet. And if you're someone who's thinking about surprising a loved one with a sewing machine as a gift, definitely give them like a little gift certificate to take them to the store and have them pick it out, because you don't want to pick a sewing machine for somebody else. Anyhow, that was a whole lot of intro. I blathered a little longer than I meant to. I guess that's the theme for my vlog sometimes. So let's get to checking out what type of tools and equipment I use in this studio. All right, guys, welcome to my studio. Starting over here by the door with a long view, just so you can kind of get a sense of how the room is set up. I do have a desk with a computer over there, but that's boring as hell and not what we're talking about. I have two main work tables in the studio. They're both multi-purpose tables, and they both have sewing machines sitting on them because that's how I roll. This table here is home to the more complicated but less often used of my sewing machines. This is a Brother in Novus. I can't remember the exact model number. Oh, it's right there. Look at that. NQ 1300 PRW. This is a really cool machine. It has a lot of specialty stitch patterns that it can do, but I don't ever use any of them except for the zigzag and the straight stitch. That's basically what I do on this machine. I also use it for free motion embroidery and free motion quilting. This is my older sewing machine. It's one that I have used for way more projects, but I got my newer sewing machine, which is that one over there that we'll talk about in a minute. I bought that one last year. Actually used my mask making money to buy that one, and that's been my primary machine since. But I do love this Brother. It's an amazing machine. Like I said, it does a ton of embroidery and pre-programmed stitches, but I don't use it that way. I use it for the free motion aspect, as a straight stitch machine and as a zigzag machine. The thing I really love about this one is it has this feature where it automatically lifts the presser foot up when you stop sewing. So when I have to do lots of multi-directional sewing projects, it makes my life that much more convenient. So that's that machine. It's pretty cool. I love it a lot. I would recommend it for anyone who is into sewing, especially garment work, fashion stuff. It's actually a project runway model, which is what that PRW stands for. Behind that sewing machine is my Overlock machine. That's the one that I use when I'm assembling masks, and I actually haven't used it in months because I haven't made any masks in months. So it's a Riccar 564DE. I bought that one actually because the guy at the sewing machine repair shop said that he never ever has to repair Riccars because they're just total workhorses. So it's been a total workhorse the entire time that I've had it. I don't use it that often, but it's never a problem when I do. The rest of this table is covered with notebooks, sketchbooks, and most of my fountain pen collection, which is, well, there you go. That's a whole other vlog topic. And if you guys want, I'll talk about fountain pens because I love talking about fountain pens. But that's not quite what we were going to talk about here today. So let me just walk around this table and show you guys this other sewing machine. I do sit on a piano bench when I'm sewing. A lot of people are surprised to find that out. I find it very comfortable. So there you go. So this is my total workhorse that I do most of my sewing on these days. It's a Juki Haruka TL18QVP. This is a machine that's really designed for quilters, which is why I bought it. It only does one function, which is a lock stitch or a straight stitch. It won't do a zigzag. It will go backwards, but that's it. It's very simple. As you can see, compared to the Brother, it has all of its tensioning sort of mechanical parts on the outside of the machine. It's definitely a more bare bones machine, and I have to do a little bit of maintenance stuff. I have to keep it oiled and clean stuff out of it more often than I have to with the Brother, but it's not a problem. I know how to do it, so I do. I love this machine. It is absolutely fantastic for piecing together quilts, for quilting quilts, anything that just takes a straight stitch, again, a lock stitch, just a simple, you're just sewing a line. It doesn't make a zigzag or anything like that. This is an incredible machine. Part of what makes it so great is this open space here, which is sometimes called the throat space and sometimes called the harp space. It's really big for a sewing machine. I don't know if you guys can see how big that space is. If I put my hand right in there, especially compared to the other one. Sorry for the shaky cam, but let's walk back over here and you can see that this one has a much smaller space. Now, when you're quilting a quilt on a domestic machine like these are, most of the quilt, oh, hi, there's the quilt that I'm working on right now. Most of the quilt has to be rolled up and shoved through this space. And so it can be really tricky if you're working on a machine that's got a small throat. So I love that this Juki just has such a big space. I can roll up a queen size quilt and get that through there. I was going to say no problem, but it's a little challenging, but not really a problem. So yeah, I love this sewing machine. I would recommend it to people. Again, if you're a quilter, an experienced sewer, you want to step up from just a real basic learner machine. This is an incredible machine, an incredible workhorse. But again, it only does one function, straight stitch, lock stitch only. And so that's why I have two active machines out. I also do the kind of lazy thing of keeping this one threaded with white thread and then using the other one for black thread projects, unless I have a big quilting project with black, and then of course I'll thread this machine. So that is my sewing machine situation. You'll notice I keep it in this awkward spot on the corner of the table, which then means we have to have like cords going over here, which kind of sucks. But the reason for that is when I'm manipulating a large quilt through the machine, I need to have all this table space behind it to catch the quilt and to hold the rest of the quilt on while I'm working. And I'll tell you guys, I'm actually excited. I got a new piece of gear. Actually, it just arrived literally today. So you see how with the machine sitting on the table when I sew, I have to kind of bump up and over the surface of the machine with what I'm sewing. I actually just got a new sewing table that has a dropout in the center of it so that I'm going to be able to sit that machine in the table down low, and then this surface here will become flush with the surface of the table, and that's going to give me a giant, basically a table size workspace instead of using this small platform here. So yeah, sewing machine talk. The other really important element of sewing is cutting. You don't think about it that much when you first get into it, but it's really, really important, and it's really good to have good cutting tools. So these are my cutting tools. Ooh, sorry for the shaky cam again, guys. Handheld, not my forte. So these guys right here, Ginger, I believe these are 9-inch Dressmakers shears. These are my absolute workhorse every day, all the time. I love these scissors. They are incredible. I will absolutely unequivocally recommend these shears to anyone interested in any kind of sewing. These have been my #1 pair of shears for, God, at least 20 years. I think I paid $40 for them originally. I do get them sharpened pretty often. I try to get them sharpened at least every 2 years. Usually, if I can, every year. So I've now spent more, obviously, on sharpening these things than I did on the scissors to begin with, but they have just been the most incredible pair of shears that I've ever met. In fact, I have this whole other bucket full of other pairs of shears, including the twin of these ones here. They're the same scissors, but for whatever reason, I prefer this pair with the silver handle to this pair with the gold handle. So I just use those silver shears over and over again. I use them to cut out almost everything, unless it's something really big and flat, like pieces of a quilt, in which case I use the cutting mat with the straight edge with the rotary cutter. This thing is amazing. It's unbelievably sharp, and boy, you can mess yourself up with it. And I've cut my fingernails many times. I don't think I've ever cut my fingers with it, but it's these are cutting tools, so they're sharp and therefore potentially dangerous. This thing is great though. You put your fabric down, line it up on the mat, put your straight edge where you want to cut, then pull back the safety there. It's a very sharp blade, and roll right along the edge of this guide and cut your beautiful straight line through multiple layers of fabric without having to worry about anything getting distorted by, the scissors running under it. So I'd say I do probably most of my cutting with a straight edge and a rotary cutter at this point. But anything that's fussy, like cutting out edges of appliques, anything that's a shape that's not just a straight line, I use these scissors here. The one thing with these is they are pretty big, and I can't get super duper duper detail work out of them. So if I'm cutting something with tiny, tiny detail, I use a little pair of embroidery scissors like this to get into whatever little weird corner or space that I can't get the big shears into. That said, fabric scissors are for cutting fabric only, and so I also have a few orange-handled scissors, which are the paper scissors, kicking around the studio. I have a couple bigger ones than this, but this is my kind of daily driver for paper scissors. I like a little short blade. It allows me to be really precise with my paper cuts when I'm cutting out that stuff. So yeah, these are just budget Fiskars, whatever scissors. There's none of these shears or scissors or cutting implements are expensive at all. And yeah, that's what I use for cutting. I did get myself a special rotating cutting mat. This thing is pretty cool when I started making masks, so that I didn't have to pick up the pieces of the masks every time and reposition them. I could just set it right in the center, cut one side, turn it, cut the next side, and just keep going around. So that was a pretty cool investment. Felt like an upgrade, but it's only that big, so I can only cut things that big on it. Let's see. After cutting implements, the other thing I wanted to show you guys is what I use for basting. Basting is when you attach all the pieces of the quilt together before you start to quilt it. I used to use Quilt's basting pins, which are these funky safety pins that have this little bend in them. The bend is actually really helpful after you've pinned it through all the layers of the quilt. The quilt can still lie down flat because it's not being distorted by the pin. because the pin itself is distorted. So these are really cool if you want to do pin basting, and I used to do pin basting all the time. And then Krista Quilts on Instagram posted her technique for using this temporary spray adhesive for basting her quilts together, and I switched over to her method. It's amazing. You know, spray glue is not the greatest for the environment or for you to breathe even, but man, it made such a difference in my basting. So that's what I use now. A couple of small tools to note. I really, really like these washout markers. What are they called? Uh-oh, that side's all Japanese, but Leonis. It's a blue, it does a blue line, and it is a water erasable pen. It's a really good one. I've tried a bunch of different brands of these for drawing designs on fabric before I do shibori binding or quilt different designs. And these ones, the blue line lasts really well until you wash it out, and then it just washes right out. So it's really perfect for if you want to do that type of marking on your project. And the other hot tip that I have is one of these. I don't know what it's called, unfortunately, but there's a bunch of different brands of them. And basically, it's just a little stylus to help you at the sewing machine. There's times when I need to put something through underneath the foot here that is so persnickety, and I can't get my hand close enough to it, or I don't want to because, hello, dangerous, sharp moving part. So this thing has a hard plastic on one end, and then it's got this like rubbery silicone end that's kind of mushy. And so I can just put my sewing project, whatever it is, here. And then if I don't want to get my fingers too close as I'm putting it through, I can use this to get real close in there and push that guy through. So that's super helpful. I have this one here, and then I have another one. Should be right here in my weird bucket of stuff. Yeah, this was the first one that I got, which is just plastic, and it's got these kind of different funny shapes on the end. That's to help you know what 1/4 of an inch is. And then there's a nice little pokey bit. Of course, my camera is not focusing on this thing. But then I kind of felt like I upgraded when I got this one because I can use that one when I'm ironing. This is really great for holding down a detail thing while I'm ironing and not burning my fingers. Very important thing. Now I've got other tools around here, of course, and I did promise a full studio tour, but let me keep it a little shorter by not just going into super detail. But we've got shelves full of supplies over there. I've got, oh, there's Jimmy's art area in the corner, the design wall with my current works in progress on it. You can see there's the binding I just made for this quilt, and I was kind of auditioning it to see how I liked it and if it wasn't too dark for the quilt. I love it. I'm going to be attaching it in the next couple of days. I do have a little rolly cart with some small sewing tools and some collections of thread. So I can move that around. You know, the rolly cart is great because I can park it here behind this sewing machine, or I can roll it way around over by that sewing machine. So I also have a Kickstarter fulfillment project going on in my studio right now, but that's a different thing. I have 2 of these daylight lights, this one here and that one over there. I love them. They're OTT lights, OTT light. I love them to death. I don't know if you guys can tell, but this is a basement studio, low ceilings, and kind of crappy lighting situation. So having those 2 task lights is really great for getting stuff done. Over here, I've got bookshelves and other doodads. There's the cameras I promised you guys. Camera collection that rarely gets used, but there they are. That's 3 film and 1 digital camera. And then another rolly cart. And then there's the back room of the studio, which doesn't really have a lot of tools out, but let's include it as part of the tour. There is my ironing station, which is actually about to move because there's my brand new sewing table that has the special dropout for the sewing machine. If you can't visualize what I'm talking about, there's its little picture on the box. See how the machine sits down into the surface of the table? Oh, you guys, I'm excited about that. This is mostly just a handwork space for shibori over here. Like I said, ironing station, garment rack, more storage, and of course we can't forget the chill out spot where you can knit or have a conversation with a weird skeleton or whatever else is going on. All right, that's it for me, you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Hope you enjoyed this studio tour and gear talk. Please let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more of my gear or tool talks, or I can do the fountain pen video if you guys want to see that. So yeah, let me know what you guys like or want to see more of, and I'll see what I can do. All right, guys, I will be back in a few more days with the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. I'll see you then. Take care.